that the Book of Mirdad is not a book to be read, it is a book to be lived. Judging others comes from ignorance and pride, that love is the highest law of God. Death is not a tragedy or an end, but it's a natural transition. Logic clears the mind, whereas the faith opens the heart. Namaste, friends. This is Dr. Chandana from Hyderabad. Now let's move on to the book presentation. Okay, the book I'm presenting today is the Book of Mirdad, written by the author Mikhail Naimy. Mikhail Naimy was a Lebanese philosopher, poet, and a spiritual writer. He wrote many books, mostly in Arabic language. His most celebrated work was the Book of Mirdad, which was written in English in the year 1948. He said that the Book of Mirdad is not a book to be read, it is a book to be lived. So why did I choose this book? Because I was inspired by the quote of Osho, who said, if a ship carrying all the world's spiritual books was sinking, I would save only one, the Book of Mirdad, for within it lies the essence of them all. So what is this book all about? The Book of Mirdad is a philosophical and a spiritual allegory presented as a dialogue between Mirdad, a spiritual teacher, and his disciples in a remote monastery. This book contains 37 chapters in all. I would like to explore this book by first looking at the story in brief, followed by the core concepts which I have summarized from these chapters. So let's move on to the story. The story begins in the Milky Mountains, where the old ruins of an ancient monastery rest on a high peak known as the Altar Peak. Legend says that a person Noah and his family were aboard the ark during the Great Flood. This ark finally reached the Milky Mountains after nearly a year of difficult travel through the flood, and Noah's family settled there as it was a safe, pure, and a blessed place where life could begin again. During his last days, Noah instructs his son Sam to build an altar and a sanctuary on the highest mountain, which is the altar peak. Eventually, many centuries later, it transformed into a monastery, which was a sacred place where spiritual seekers could live and learn. And this was called the Ark Monastery. The Ark Monastery became home to 8 chosen men from the Ark, and they were guided by a nine unseen presence, the invisible companion. These together were called the Ark Companions. So this ark was built in the memory of Noah's Ark, a sanctuary of truth and purity. The early monks lived in simplicity and faith. They were united in love and humility. When one of the monks, Shamadam, became the head of the monastery, the ark, which was once a symbol of salvation, began to sink into spiritual darkness because of his greed and ego. He turned this ark into a place where money, power, and possessions mattered more than anything else. The monks followed rules and rituals blindly. They were confused, afraid, and divided under Shamadam's influence. At this moment of decline, a person called Mirdad appears as a divine messenger, arriving one day as a mysterious stranger. He was barefoot and clothed in rags. He looked like a simple beggar, yet he radiated a quiet, luminous wisdom. He comes to awaken the lost light within the monks and restore the ark to its true purpose. Though Shamadam, the leader, resisted him at first, he finally accepts Mirdad as a servant. Mirdad remained silent for 7 years while working as a servant before beginning to speak openly to the companions. One day, a discussion arises among the companions about spiritual matters, and Mirdad quietly joins in. His words reveal deep wisdom and divine authority, which awaken the companions. They realize that he is not an ordinary servant. From then on, he taught them through daily conversations, turning each moment into a lesson of truth, unity, and divine purpose. So after Mirdad arrived, he himself became the ninth invisible companion, the living embodiment of divine presence among them. So finally, Mirdad starts teaching at the monastery. In the figure, you can see Mirdad along with his 8 companions. Then Shamadam, the leader monk, who was driven by pride and desire for control, resisted Mirdad's message of humility and freedom. His jealousy turns into fear, and he began to see Mirdad as a rival instead of a teacher. Mirdad exposes the false foundation which was built by Shamadam and teaches that the real treasure lies within the soul and not in gold or possessions. So Mirdad, through his silent presence and later his powerful words, slowly transforms the monastery. Through Mirdad's words and examples, the monks slowly begin to change. They learn to look within, to find God not in rituals but in awareness. Mirdad showed that the real ark is not a building but the awakened human soul that can rise above the storms of life. Mirdad finally blesses his disciples and tells them to continue spreading the light of understanding. He then disappears, as if he had merged with the divine. Mirdad's teachings were noted down by Naronda, the youngest of the companions, as a record of his words and wisdom, which became a spiritual diary for the future generations. And this was called the Book of Mirdad. So, friends, from Mirdad's journey, we learn that the real change begins inside us. Now, let us look at the core concepts that help us awaken to that inner reality. So, the core concepts of this book are summarized under the following headings. These concepts are explained by the author Mikhail Naimy through the character of Mirdad, who illustrates them using examples from his companions. Before we move on to these concepts, I invite all of you to see these concepts not as ideas in a book, but as experiences we all share in real life. When you listen to the next slides, look for yourself in them. You can ask yourself these 2 questions. Where is this happening in my life? And what is this teaching trying to show me right now? So, friends, with this mindset, let's enter the heart of Mirdad's messages. The first one is awakening to reality. Mirdad teaches that humanity lives covered in wheels, seals, swaddling bands, and the fig leaf aprons, as you can see in the figure. These are symbols of illusion and separation. Mirdad uses these symbols as metaphors to show how humans hide their real self behind many layers. So we shall learn about each of these symbols in the upcoming slides. The first one is wheels and seals. Wheels are illusions or coverings of the mind and senses. They are fear, ego, anger, judgment, etc. And they can be lifted by silence, awareness, compassion, and understanding. Whereas seals are like locks which are placed over the heart and soul. They are rigid beliefs, fixed identities, and emotional blocks. Seals can be broken by humility, acceptance, love, and forgiveness. So, this image shows the inner divine light, which is obscured by the wheels of illusion and sealed by rigid beliefs that prevent the true self from shining through. So breaking these seals and lifting the wheels is called awakening, and thus we can open up to the divine truth. The next one is swaddling bands. So swaddling bands are the bindings of the flesh, senses, and the material world, which give a false security. They include physical needs, habits, and attachments. These can be comparable to the cloths wrapped around the newborn baby, as you can see in the figure, which keep it safe and protected. Just as these bands must be loosened as the baby grows, we also must let go of our attachments to grow spiritually. Quote an example of swaddling bands from the book. The monks were attached to the ark. They thought that the ark itself, that is the building, is holy. They depended on it for safety. But Mirdad teaches them that the real ark is within, the soul itself. Thus, they learn not to cling to the outer forms. The next one is the fig leaf aprons. These symbolizes the masks and the pretenses which we wear to hide our shame or weaknesses. They are the coverings of the ego, as you can see in the figure. So shedding them means that we are being more honest, transparent, and free. We are able to stand before God as our true self. There is nothing to hide. And this is called true salvation. Quote an example of the fig leaf apron is Shamadam, who was a leader monk. He hides his fear, pride, and insecurity behind an appearance of religious authority. Outwardly, he looked holy. He was performing rituals and controlling people, but inwardly, he was ruled by ego and jealousy, especially towards midnight. So, friends, awakening to reality means seeing life as it truly is, beyond the illusions, fears, and distractions. Moving on to the next concept, beyond duality. So, this section shows how we create suffering by dividing everything into opposites and choosing sides. So, this concept can be explained under the following headings. The first one being on crucibles and cribbles. So, what is a crucible? It is a vessel in which metals are melted until the impurities are burnt away. What remains is the pure essence, as you can see in the figure. Then, what is a cribble? A cribble is a sieve which separates the coarse from the fine material. It helps us let go of what is false or unnecessary. We usually see a cribble in our kitchens. Now, how are these related to our concept? A crucible is the inner space where all the opposites or the dualities inside us, like fear and courage, pride, humility, pain, pleasure, these are burned in the fire of awareness, as you can see in the figure. All these dualities melt and lose their separate identities. And what remains is one truth, which is the pure, clear consciousness. And the cribble, as I've already explained, separates the coarse from the fine material. Mildad uses cribble as a symbol for the inner filter of awareness. So it helps us transcend the dualities, like the coarse material, which is the right, wrong, joy, sorrow, etc., and reveals the oneness or the fine material beneath them, which is the love, truth, silence, compassion, etc. So Mirdad tells his companions that every soul must pass through its own crucibles and cribbles before they can reach truth. The next one is master versus servant and superior versus inferior. Mirdad shows that the true mastery lies in humble service, and true servants are those who can serve with love and awareness. When Mirdad first arrived at the ark, he was taken in as a servant. He did all the tasks like cooking, cleaning, carrying water, etc. And all these tasks he did it with love. Through silence, humility, and profound insight, his companions slowly realized that he was not a servant, but a true master in disguise. So, master and servant, although they seem opposite in duality, that is, one commands and the other obeys, but beyond duality, both are the roles of the same one life. The next one is on judgment. When Mildad arrives at the ark, the leader monk Shamadam judges him as a beggar by his poor appearance and tattered clothes. However, Mildad's deep humility and calm presence reveal his true greatness. Mildad tells that judging others comes from ignorance and pride. So, when we stop judging and seek to understand with love, we can grow both closer to both people and to God. Quote my own example here. In my daily practice, I come across patients who express both praise and criticism. Still, I treat them with the same compassion without labeling them as good or bad. I simply focus on caring for each of them equally. The next concept is the power of love. So, this section deals with love as the divine law, which guides all the human relationships. This concept can be explained under the following headings. The first one being love is the law of God. Mirdad teaches that love is the highest law of God, the power that unites all creation. Only through love can you rise above fear, pride, and separation. So, to quote an example from the story, among the companions was Mikhail, whose love for Mirdad was pure devotion. He expected nothing, only he was trusting and serving. Through Mikhail, Mirdad revealed that true love gives strength and it transforms doubt into faith and leads the soul towards unity, towards the divine. Here I would like to quote my example. I noticed that a kind word often heals more than medicine. As a doctor in my daily practice, when I treat patients with love rather than a mere prescription, I feel that I can awaken their inner strength to recover. So they recover faster than usual. So love itself becomes a medicine. The next one is on relationships. Mirdad tells us that true love is spiritual and not physical. To quote an example from the book, one of the companions, Zamora, he comes to the ark hiding a secret. He once deeply loves a woman called Hogla, but her death shatters him and he is left emotionally lifeless. He comes to the ark to hide his pain and grief, and Mirdad helps him face it. He shows that true love should not bind or destroy, but should elevate and purify the heart. The next one is life, death, and eternity. This section reveals the truth about life, death, and our eternal nature. This concept can be explained under the following headings. The first one being death is a transformation. Death is not a tragedy or an end, but it's a natural transition. The soul shedding a worn out body like changing clothes. As you can see in the figure, water is changing into vapor. This is a change of state, but there is no change in essence. To quote an example, one of the companions was Himbal. His father dies and he was in great pain and grief. So Mirdad says that Himbal's pain represents the human struggle to accept death. He tells him that the love and essence of his father is not destroyed by death. They live on as a part of the eternal spirit. So Himbal learns to shift from grief to gratitude and from attachment to understanding. The next one is logic and faith. Mirdad used to teach truths that go beyond the ordinary understanding, like silence, unity, eternity. So one of the companions was Abhiman. He was the most logical and questioning companion. He used to seek proof for every truth which Mirdad spoke. So Mirdad explains that logic helps us understand the world by asking questions, whereas faith is our inner trust in which what we cannot see. It allows us to experience truth and connects us with the divine. Logic clears the mind, whereas the faith opens the heart. So together they guide the soul from life through death into eternity. The next one is the great nostalgia. Every human heart carries a quiet longing, that is, a deep pull to return to its true home, which is the divine. That is called the great nostalgia or the soul's homesickness for God. So, this longing makes worldly life feel incomplete, as the soul remembers its origin in God. It drives us to seek meaning, love, and truth beyond material success. So in the figure, you can see on the left hand side, there are people, their homes, and there is a marketplace. And it's an ordinary human existence with its joys, sorrows, and attachments. Whereas on the right hand side, there is a church with a serene environment. It's a realm of eternal truth. And there's a bridge which connects from one side to the other. Most of us are lost in this worldly existence because of distractions. But when we follow this longing and cross this bridge of great nostalgia, we gradually move towards a state of oneness with God. And that is a state of eternity. The next concept is living in the now. Mirdad says that every moment is sacred because God is present in every moment. True prayer is not rituals or fixed times, but to live each moment with love, awareness, and gratitude. In the figure, you can see on the left side, there is a formal worship going on. It's a religious ceremony. There is lighting of candles and also there is a temple arch. Whereas on the right hand side, you can see a woman washing dishes. It's an ordinary moment, but it is also a type of informal worship. So even ordinary actions like washing, cooking, eating, etc. become sacred when done with a mindful and pure heart. Quote an example from the book. There were two other companions in the monastery who were Benun and Siru. So Benun always used to live in the future, dreaming, planning, and expecting joy in the future, whereas Siru was always burdened by the past, the guilt, regret, and the past memories. Mildred teaches them that now is what is eternal. It is the only time where love, joy, and God can be experienced. The last concept is victory within. So Mildred says that the real battle is between the ego, which seeks power and control, and the soul, which seeks love and peace. When we conquer the ego and follow the soul instead, then we can gain true inner freedom and thereby live in peace and harmony. To quote an example, the prince of Betar, who was the ruler of the neighboring kingdom, once comes to the ark to seek wisdom. He asks Mildad what is the true key to people's hearts. He admits that he cannot win the love of his neighbors. He is compelled to fight them, despite his deep desire for peace. But Mildad tells him that the key to winning others or the true victory lies not in conquering people, but from conquering the fear and ego within oneself. So, friends, pause for a moment and think what is the one inner battle you have already overcome? It could be fear or anger or doubt. And what inner victory are you working on right now? So, friends, as we come to the end of Mirdad's teachings, we realize that the true ark is within us. The ark of Noah was a symbol of, it was only a symbol. It is a physical reminder of a greater inner truth. The outer ark was built of wood or stone. It once saved bodies from the flood. But the inner ark It's built of faith, love, and understanding within the heart. It saves souls from the storms of fear, desire, and ignorance, as represented in the figure. So, when we silence the mind and purify the heart and align with the divine will, then only we can enter the true or the inner arc, which is a state of inner peace and unity with God. So, to conclude, the Book of Mirdad is essentially the story of humanity's spiritual journey. We start asleep. We are trapped in our daily routines and false beliefs. This can be compared to the monastery before the arrival of Mirdad. A catalyst arrives which challenges everything. That is Mirdad's arrival. But we resist awakening because it threatens our ego. That is represented by Shamadhan's opposition. Through teaching, suffering, and grace, we gradually begin to awaken. That is each of the companions' transformation. We shed layers of false identities like guilt, shame, fear, and attachment, and that is through various teachings of Mirdad. Finally, there is a conflict. The ego wants separation, but the soul wants unity. So the limitations which we feel, like fear, doubt, insecurity, past hurt, they are mostly created by our own mind. When we finally understand that these mental chains were not never truly real, we experience deep inner freedom. And that is liberation and understanding, which is launching of the arc. So, friends, the key takeaways from this session are when we see life beyond illusion and ego, then we will awaken to reality. When we stop judging and seeing all as one, that is, when we go beyond duality, peace comes naturally. Love dissolves fear and binds all hearts as one. That is the power of love. The body ends, and yet the spirit moves on. Life itself is eternal. We feel God's presence only in the now. The greatest victory is self mastery, and it is not worldly success. So, friends, as we come to the last slide of the presentation, I invite all of you to carry this message with you. Fear not the deluge, but be the ark. Life may bring floods, that is, our struggles, our challenges, but within you is the ark, that is, the vessel of inner strength, clarity, and courage to navigate them. So, be your own ark, fear nothing, trust yourself, and live fully. Yes, friends. Actually, this book is a small book, but it is written in a poetic way. So it was a little bit difficult to understand. So with great difficulty, I could get the inner meaning of the book. My deepest gratitude to Pradeep sir, the Mirdad in our lives, for inspiring me and my companions to walk the path of awareness, unity, and love. Thank you, TOT team, for your support and cooperation. And thanks to the audience for your patient listening.